if I look back at the first business plan now, I'd probably shiver because it was really rudimentary, but it covered everything. Our first kind of 6 months as DesignTonic was Joe and I getting out there. We went to every networking do. We went to everything that we were invited to, we turned up at. We've started a business that fits out offices and bars and restaurants, and they're all shut, and we don't know when they're opening. What we're going to do. So Leeds were our first sports client. We've worked with Nottingham Forest, we've worked with Manchester United, we're about to go with Liverpool, we've got Arsenal, absolute Marmite. Some people hate them, some people love them, but everyone talks about it.
If you're looking to be inspired, motivated and educated by the business journeys and lessons learned of Leeds business owners, then this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Phil Fraser. Today's guest launched her business after a discussion in a coffee shop. Listen how Amanda Cook tells us about the importance of networking in building of her business, how much support there is out there for businesses, and why cash is king. We also discuss Leeds United and aliens, although not in the same sentence. On today's Leeds Business Podcast, I'm delighted to have with me Amanda Cook, founder of DesignTonic. Morning, Amanda.
Morning.
Okay, so very, very briefly, tell our listeners and viewers, what is DesignTonic?
We design and create outstanding commercial spaces.
Okay, and you weren't reading that off the website.
It's ingrained.
Okay, just give us a brief background, because I know I was looking last night, you've got quite a lot of things you've done before you did DesignTonic. So just give us a brief outline of pre-DesignTonic.
Yes, so pre-DesignTonic, I did an interior architecture degree at Huddersfield, and then left and went to work for Yorkshire Bank. Nothing to do with interior architecture. Actually really enjoyed that. And then got back into it probably 4 or 5 years later, working for various companies in my sector, in more so in a sales than design. But I guess when you do what you do, having that design background really helps. And then the previous company, I met my business partner, Joe Darcy, and then we started DesignTonic 6 years ago now. Okay,
so you're working with Joe. Tell us about that. Tell us about that meeting in the pub or the coffee shop where you said, "Do you know what, Joe? We should do our own business."
How did you know it was in a pub? So I think we were working at a company together, and we were pretty much running the company, even though it wasn't our company. And as you do, you get to a point where you think, I'm getting older, I want to try this out. So we tried to negotiate a management buyout with the owner of the company we're working at. Just couldn't get there. So yes, over a beer in a pub, kind of Guinness in a pub, we decided, what have we got to lose? And so within 24 hours, we'd created the company, and off we went.
So that was, I've spoken to lots of people who started their own businesses. Just talk us through that point where you sort of walk into the boss and say, I'm handing my notice in. And then also, did you have a business plan? Did you have an idea? What was the first stages look like?
Yeah, we'd been chatting for a while, as you do. Joe and I, the first time we met was at our previous company, and we just got on. We like characters. We're both from Irish descent, love a beer, love meeting people. So we've kind of gelled. So, I would say a year leading up to the creation of DesignTonic, we'd started talking about this. And we had some key clients, which were our personal clients, which we'd brought to that business. And, we knew that if we had a conversation that they would come with us. We weren't silly enough to think we'll start a business and there we go, we'll be fine. We did some groundwork. We put a business plan together, what we thought we could do in that first year, where we thought we could get to. And we were really conservative. Looking back now, extremely conservative. But yeah, we did lots of groundwork, and we also, did what you need to do. We both got families, so we were, very conscious that, we're not people who we can afford not to be drawing a salary. So we saved between us, and we kind of got, I'd say, 6 months of comfort, but we knew after that 6 months we had to make it work. So it was a long conversation, and then when we finally decided, we spoke to our current employer, and as you'd expect, it probably didn't go down too well, because as what you're saying is we're creating a competitor. But we felt we'd explored the MBO enough, and it couldn't work, that we'd kind of done the right thing. So we took the plunge, and it wasn't pleasant. It was difficult, but it was the total right thing for us at the time. And it's gone from strength to strength, and we don't look back at all. And it's been an absolute great journey so far. And if you're any good at working out the timeline, obviously we started, and then year 1, fantastic. Year 2, COVID. So timing not fantastic, but the decision was right.
Yeah. Just going back a second there, you said you put a business plan together. Now, lots of people out there who are maybe thinking of running their own businesses and starting up, how did you sort of put that together? Because a lot of people go, oh, have a business plan, and people go, shit, what goes into a business plan? What do I need? All that. Yeah. Just talk us through that bit.
It was fairly simple. We went on the internet. We found a really basic template, and we just worked on it together. And if I look back at the first business plan now, I'd probably shiver, because it was really rudimentary, but it covered everything. It covered cash flow, strengths and weaknesses, clients, threats. We did the whole thing. And really on in the process, we actually consulted, it was a council-backed system called Adventure. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but it gave grants to startups. Unfortunately, I don't think that particular thing exists anymore. And so we spoke to them, and they allocated as an advisor Stuart. And Stuart was an ex-bank manager for 30 plus years, did this as a part-time basis, and he was fantastic. So the parts that we probably weren't as good at, because we've never done it, which is the money part, the finance, how we do it, he offered this absolute invaluable advice. So we had Stuart. We also talked to people that we knew in our industry, and said, can you just give us some assistance? So actually, when we pulled it all together, it was a very rounded plan. As I say, fairly rudimentary, but rounded. And, I think all the people that helped us, and that was supply chain, that was, people we worked with before, but we did spend a long time chatting to people who could, add real value to the plan.
It's interesting you mentioned Adventure. They were actually mentioned in last week's episode with Furnish.
Oh, right, okay.
And we talked a lot about support, and there's a lot of formal support out there, but there's also a lot of informal support, and it's amazing how much people are willing to help just by asking. Yes. And a lot of people are a bit sort of worried about asking, particularly if it's I've got this idea, and you think, oh God, this sounds like really shitty. What are people going to think? But actually, the best thing to do is to put it out there and just ask.
Absolutely, and it is nerve-wracking, because someone could turn around and say, "Oh, don't be stupid," or don't. But no one we spoke to said anything negative. In fact, everyone was so willing to help us, and that included people in our industry who we would class as a competitor. So I think talk to as many people as you can, and certainly now, if Joe and I get approached by other people, we will always spend time with them, because it's it's the way you learn, isn't it?
Absolutely. So you've handed your notice in. You've got your rudimentary business plan. You sort of turn up on day one.
Yeah.
What does that feel like, and how did things start?
So we the first day was Starbucks, classic. Never drank so much coffee. So we sat, and we plotted and we planned, and we said, who should we target? Where should we go? Very conscious of not stepping on lots of toes. And a client who we've worked before, and honestly, it's really out of the blue, and it's still strange to this day, called me while we were sat at the table within an hour of our first day as DesignTonic, and said, "Are we moving? Where are you?" So, well, you won't believe this. And so they became our first client, and that was the property buying company. Again, Carl and Johnny, they're fantastic people. And so they were our first client, and it was a great job. And it was so good, and they were so nice that when we finished fitting out their lovely new office, they let us stay. So our first office was our first project. So we had a little space in their office, and that saw us through the first 2 years of DesignTonic.
Amazing. It's always, and I don't think enough people talk about this, that the role that luck plays in businesses is, you know, we had the same in our business. It is. So just, I mean, you're I'm being very simplistic. You're interior designers for B2B, yeah?
Yes, we're B2B interior design, but we also fit out and we furnish. So it's a full turnkey service. So the easiest way to describe it is you give me the key at the start and I'll give you it finished at the end. And all you need to do is move yourself and your computers in. So the whole thing's done.
Okay. So I'm just thinking from a sales process point of view, you know, it's not like you're not going to sort of ring people up and go, "Are you moving soon?" How does lead generation work?
It's networking, network. You're right. Not many, you know, there'll be businesses who are looking to move and they may use Google as their friend. But when you started a business and you've got no case studies, it's connections. So Joe and I had, you know, spent the last 6, 7, 8, 10 years, you know, working around the city. We'd built lots of connections through commercial property agents, through end users, through suppliers, and it was pure networking. So our first kind of 6 months as DesignTonic was Joe and I getting out there. We went to every networking do. We went to every, you know, everything that we were invited to, we turned up at. And it started to pay off. You know, it's about getting out there, getting your face out there. You know, it was long days and it was hard, and it worked. And also we had connections who within, you know, a couple of months of starting said, right, we've got something that needs doing. And it started to roll. And then once you get a portfolio, then it really starts to build.
Okay. You mentioned it, COVID.
Yes.
So you're a 1 year, 18-month-old company and COVID happened.
Fitting out offices.
Fitting out offices, obviously. Big demand during COVID. So how was that?
Yeah, so I remember it vividly, sat at my kitchen table and the day after the announcement and thinking, right, we've started a business that fits out offices and bars and restaurants and they're all shut and we don't know when they're opening, what we're going to do. So we kind of regrouped. We sat there and we thought, right, let's speak to the supply chain first about cash flow. Let's try keep some cash in the business to see us through whatever this period looks like. And our supply chain were fantastic. You know, we were a new business at this point, and some major companies, Elite Office Furniture being one, supported us throughout this journey. So we got our cash flow in order. And then we started to look at, actually, what can we do? You know, we are construction, that's termed. So, you know, within kind of 3 weeks, you know, Boris is saying, oh, actually, if you're construction, you get back out there. So it was strange and it was difficult, and it was a massive decision for us to make, because it's all right saying get back out there, but you're asking your team in the most worrying time, and we don't really know what COVID is, to go back out there. Is that fair? Is that right? You know, what we have to put lots of health and safety things, extra health and safety layers in. But we just, again, kept talking, kept giving it to the team, and they all said, look, if you're telling us we can work, we want to work. So we actually were, you know, fairly unique that we could get straight back out. So we was fitting out a major office in town, and you know, we were able to park on Ball Lane because you can. So, you know, our days became very, very much the same. Whilst we couldn't go into our office, we could go to site. So we continued through COVID, and actually COVID was a growth year for us, because then as the message started to get a bit clearer, people thought, well, actually, we are going to go back to the office one day. So that work that I wanted doing, which I didn't know when I could do it because the office is busy, and let's get it done. or that bar or restaurant that's needed a refurb, but again, didn't want to close down. Actually, perfect time, let's get it done. There may have been some grant monies around that helped, in some of this, getting people back in. So we had, although it wasn't a huge growth, we actually did, it was a small growth through that year. And one of the things that we didn't have to do, which, we're lucky not to do, we didn't have to use the furlough scheme. So we didn't have to go for grants, we didn't have to use the furlough. So actually it was, we kind of maintained a real, status quo within the business.
Okay. Just jumping forward, you mentioned bars and restaurants. But obviously at the moment, particularly, looking at the news in Leeds recently, Man Behind the Curtain's closed, Home is closed.
Yeah.
What's the bar and restaurant market looking like at the moment?
So we've got a lot of great clients in that sector, and we've got clients that are doing really well. And I think for me, it's really buoyant. If you go into town on a Friday now, I think a Friday afternoon feels like a Saturday night. People are out, they're drinking, they're eating. You go into town on a Saturday afternoon, it's the same thing. I don't think people are not spending hospitality. I think what people want is the offer to be absolutely right. And I think service plays a massive part in that. I think you've got to nail your service offer, and I think you've got to be able to pivot. If that offer isn't working, you have to be able to pivot. So we're finding probably slightly the opposite, that it's booming. And we also do a lot within sports hospitality and concert venue. And we've asked the question why to the owners of these clubs and facilities. Why are people, why is it so, why can you sell a ticket to a football match at X amount? And it's because they think after COVID, experiences have become more important to people, whereas a designer bag might have been important at one point. It's actually doing things with your friends and family that you remember. So the experience market, as we like to class it, I think is only going one way.
Okay. I want to get onto the sports market as a Leeds United fan, a season ticket holder.
Yeah.
I'm interested in that side of it. But before I do, I need to speak to our listeners and viewers about the Leeds Business Podcast Fair Deal. The Leeds Business Podcast Fair Deal has two sides to it. My side of the deal is every week I bring you, free of charge, inspirational, motivational and fascinating business leaders like Amanda. And you, listener and viewer, have one task in exchange. That is to recommend this podcast to one other person who you feel will get a benefit from it. So that's the Leeds Business Podcast Fair Deal. Sound like a fair deal, Amanda?
Very, yeah.
Okay, so let's talk football. You seem
Let me
to
ask you a question. Would you talk football if Leeds hadn't have gone up?
Of course I would. I've had 50 years of tears with this club. I'm not giving up now. So you've obviously carved yourself a niche in sort of, I suppose, fitting out football restaurants and bars. Where did that come from? Was that proactive, or was it just like one job and you thought, oh, actually, there's a market here?
Yeah, Joe had always had a connection with Leeds United, and Leeds were probably our second job that we did when we started DesignTonic, and we've maintained that relationship. So now every season, we'll sit down with Leeds and we'll look at what needs doing next. And you've been in the stadium lots, I'm sure. The stadium's of an age, so there's always things to be done. And as a new owner comes in or a new manager comes in, things change, there's new requirements. So Leeds were our first sports client and are a fantastic client for us, and we love working with them. But we knew that if the office market, say people decided not to come back into the office, we couldn't just rely on that. We needed this extra layer of market to be able to sustain us through. So we were very proactive in targeting, and it's a difficult market to break, actually, the sports market. It's few people in big positions. It's difficult to get in. So we started locally. So we said to our connections at Leeds, look, who do you know at Yorkshire County Cricket? Who do you know at the Rhinos? And then we did it that way. So through introduction. And then once we got in front of those clubs, again, the conversation became easier because that we can take them down to Leeds and say, this is what we do. And then so very quickly, Yorkshire County Cricket became a client and a very good friend of ours the Rhinos followed. And then we just started to roll that through. And as people move clubs, which they do, we expanded that network. So then we worked with Nottingham Forest, we've worked with Manchester United, we're about to go with Liverpool, Arsenal. And again, it's through connection. It's asking the right person and, could you just introduce me to X? So it's through pure connection. And then what we do is we like to become partners of the clubs. We don't want this to be a standalone relationship. So we always give a commitment back. So if a project and a relationship gets going, we're happy to look at how we can support the club in their activities as well. So we've built this really good network now. And I personally see the sports hospitality and concert hospitality being a huge growth area for us. And we've just finished a job at the Co-op Live, which has been fantastic. And again, we see that rolling through.
Brilliant. And I suppose fitting out a sports bar or a function room is no different to anything else. It's just that they've seen you do football stuff, so they go, "Oh, you do football stuff."
We've got a good model in the football. It's all about return on investment in the football sector particularly. So we've got a good model where we can demonstrate, right, if you pay X, you charge that per head, you'll pay it off in this. But this is what the offer looks like. It's a silver service offer. It's a burger offer. It's a, pint. So that's the way we pitch it. So when we're working on that initial design and form piece, we get really into not just what it looks like, what you're serving, how you're going to serve it, head numbers, and then we model it for them. So it's really easy to say to a club, right, you could pay that off in a year if you did this many covers and you did it like this. So it's quite an interesting model and it works really well. And that's been a good selling point for us within the clubs as well, because everyone wants to know numbers, don't they?
I think that is brilliant, because you're not just saying, oh, the chair's going to be blue and the wall's going to be yellow or whatever it is. You're actually putting a business case sort of wrapped around your offering as well, aren't you?
Well, you've got you're right. We form part of the business case. So we do a lot of perspective work. So we'll do the modelling and we'll do design pieces prospectively, and it forms the business plan for the commercial executive at the club so we become part of their infrastructure almost when they're pulling together the next year business plans. We become an essential part of that.
I love that. It's absolutely brilliant. Now, you've set that up as a separate division now, haven't you?
Yeah, we felt we should, and it's more from a labour point of view. You can imagine we've got all our teams here, and then it hits summer, the final whistle goes, and every club's like, Ryan, so we have to separate it out because we've still got lots of lovely office clients that we want to work with. So we have to separate out. It's from a labour point, really. But I think separating out was right as well. I think we're dealing with sports company. We need to behave like a sports company. We need to look like a sports company, not necessarily a design house or a construction company.
Right. Okay. So is that a separate company or just a division?
Just a division.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Time will tell.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And where did you mention music events? Where did that come from? Was that just another lead or?
Yeah, so it actually, again, generated via Yorkshire County Cricket and one of their other partners, their ticketing part, they Seat Unique. We got a good relationship with them, and now we're working with them on what their offer looks like within all these various sports and concert facilities. But it all comes, everything that we win comes back to the same point, is through connection. It's through, doing a good job, saying what you're going to do on the tin, being nice, and then, asking for the right person. And it's everything's about network.
Okay. So you set the business up, was it 5 years? Did we say 5 years ago?
6 years ago, yeah.
6 years ago, 15 million turnover, 25 staff. It's all been rosy. There can't have been any problems whatsoever along the route. So go on. Share some of the bumps in the road.
Like any business, cash is king. And, there's been time, we're a construction company. We work on contractual basis that, it can sometimes be difficult. People, even though we're in contract, take a while to pay. And so cash flow has always been the biggest, headache for our business. Being really honest and open, we don't have any borrowing. So we, it's all been self-generated. So, and there was times over, last summer particularly, where a few things slowed in payments, where you start to panic. And as a business owner, it's sleepless nights, and it's, how am I going to solve this problem? So cash, is something we keep a close eye on. We have a weekly meeting about that. And then also, I think, your team, we're really keen that we attract and retain the best people within the team. And so far we've done that. But, recruiting's difficult. And it's, we spend a lot of time trying to get that right person, and not an easy process. So yeah, not all roses. Plus you live and breathe it, don't you? I never switch off. Never really.
Absolutely. So any actual sort of build disasters that you can share with us?
Well, we've got no disasters. In COVID, you couldn't get cement for love nor money. So we paid way over the odds for that. Same with glazing. No, we've had no disasters. We've had lots of things that have, from a legal point, slowed because of, maybe a lease didn't get done, and there's been a massive, struggle here to allocate labour elsewhere. But from an actual build, no, we're pretty good at what we do. Nothing's fallen down yet.
Okay. Yet. You used the word yet.
You never know.
Okay. Now, every week we invite our guests to give us a how-to. So, Amanda, tell us what you could teach us how to do, and teach us how to do it.
So I want to talk about how to become recognised, and I mean that as a brand and as the people within the business. I think something we've done really well at DesignTonic is become a bit of a go-to in the Yorkshire market. From a standing start 6 years ago, now we're a recognised brand. So, and I think it's quite an easy one to get right. I think the first thing is that you have to have energy. I think you never stop. I can guarantee that every day of the week, one member of the team is out doing something somewhere, or some kind of brand piece like I'm doing today. You have to have the energy. You've got to keep going. You've got to find these little, little wins and niches, and also don't say no. Just say yes. Just do it, whatever it is. So I think that's the first one. I think something that we have, and it's our mantra here, and it's on the wall, is work hard and be nice to people, because I think people remember nice people. People want to work for people. So, the more that they remember you and recognise you, you'll build that recognition. Network, as I've said several times, is the most important thing, and maintain it and nourish it and make it bigger all the time. I think stand out. We did some rebrand about 2 years ago, and I launched the aliens. So we've got the DesignTonic aliens, which are absolute marmite. Some people hate them, some people love them, but everyone talks about it. So I think, don't be afraid to push the envelope. I think, it's easy just to be what you are, but, get talked about, whether it's good or bad. And find those brand, promotion opportunities. We sponsored Yorkshire County Cricket in the very early days. We had an opportunity with Stan sponsor on Headingley Lane there, and when all the furore hit up, with the racism scandal, we were really clear that we worked with the people that were in the club there, and we maintained that. And so we've been on that stand now for 5-6 years, and I intend to be there for as long as they'll have me. Same with the club partnerships. Don't leave it as a supplier-customer relationship. You become partners. And I think all these things will make you recognisable as a brand and as a person. And then your business will really start to grow. And there'll be lots of organic growth in that as well.
Okay, that's a great how-to. And I think they always say yes, because you never know where it'll go.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, I always say yes. And, the amount of deals we've done over a pint in a bar, I always say yes to a drink.
Obviously. Now, people who are listening won't have seen Amanda pointing at two black and white pictures that are behind her of aliens.
Yeah.
So just talk about the aliens.
So we did a little bit of a rebrand, and I wanted it to be very fashion-led. And our brand agency came up with these aliens. So these aliens are sat in very nice architectural type ergonomic chairs. And then we've got a series of images of aliens in different settings. So our new tagline, "Out of This World Spaces," obviously is part of the aliens. But as I say, I've had lots of people saying, "What on earth have you done?" And I get lots of people saying, "Oh, I love that. You know, you stand out." So yeah, not everyone's cup of tea, but they're staying. I love them.
Great. Now, the reason I got you on is you do work with SmartWorks with Tracy Fletcher, whose episode was, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago. Just talk us through what you've done with them.
So we work with them as a charity partner. So we support them. We've done their cycling events. We've done different things that they've run. We donate clothing, but also we support them in their transition as they grow as a business. So as you might know, as Tracy was said, they're down in Mapgate there, and you know their service is fantastic. What they do for women in the situations that they're in is absolutely unbelievable. And you know, they need space for that. They need to bring these women in and be able to take them on a journey. You know, and it's not just about dressing. It's about tutoring and making them feel empowered. So we've supported them in their new facility, which is just over the road in the mill. And, you know, it will be fantastic and transformational, and it'll allow them to offer more and more to these women who desperately need it. So we've designed it for them. We've costed it. We've visualized it. And we'll continue on that journey as long as they need us, because I wholly believe in what they do as a service. I think it's fantastic. And if you've ever seen Tracy speak, or any of the candidates that they've worked with, you know, it's so emotional. You know, they are changing lives for people here. So we'll continue to support them in anything that they need. And we're supporting with the pop-up shop at the minute, which is just about to go live, not today. Again, we've furnished that for them. It's a fantastic service.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you haven't listened to the Tracy Fletcher episode, there'll be a link to it in the show notes. Now, before you go, Amanda, every guest gets to give another Leeds business a shout out. So who are you going to give a shout out to?
So I want to give a shout out to Little Bowboy. I love food, so it was always going to be food related. James and JB, who own Little Bowboy and Curbside Kids. Again, we met them years and years ago, day one of DesignTonic, when they were doing the little Bowboy in Sovereign Street there, and they became firm friends. And I've watched them grow. They're franchising now all around the country. They're launching new brands all the time, and they're just two people that they're infectious. And I mean that in a nice way. No, they're absolutely infectious to be around, and it's been fantastic. They've kind of grown at the same time we've grown. We're almost like sister and brother. So it's fantastic to see them and you know what they do and how they, you know, again, their marketing's interesting, and yeah, I'd give them a massive shout out.
Okay, there'll be a link to Little Bowboy in the show notes. Amanda, it's been absolutely fantastic. Thanks very much for coming on.
Thank you. Welcome.
So that's it. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Make sure you hit the follow button so every new episode gets sent straight to your phone. See you next week.